thinking outside the box is not just a skill, it's a mindset. And anyone can do it. But before we dive deeper, let's talk about why we sometimes get stuck in the box in the first place. You know probably that feeling when you have been doing something the same way for so long. It's almost automatic. That's what we call the comfort zone. And don't get me wrong, the comfort zone feels safe, cozy, and it's a beautiful place to be. It's familiar and predictable, and there's less risk of things going wrong. But here's the catch. It can also be a trap. When we stick too closely to what we know, we stop growing. Welcome to Soultime, a show that explores the world of unlocking your unique potential. My name is Dr. Katja Makowka, and I'm a teacher at school, a former teacher at universities, and a stress and mental coach. And I'm your host. So, what exactly does it mean to think outside the box? It's not some magical exclusive skill. It's really just about breaking away from the usual ways of thinking and approaching problems from new, fresh angles. It's about asking what if and why not, instead of settling for that's just how it's always been done. A lot of people think creativity or thinking outside the box is only for certain types of people, like artists, designers, or maybe the tech geniuses out in the Silicon Valley, for example. But honestly, that's a huge myth. We all have the ability to think differently. It's just a matter of practicing it and being open to new perspectives. Whether you are a teenager, a student, a manager, or someone just trying to solve everyday challenges, thinking outside the box applies to you. And let's look at some real world examples. Take, for example, Apple. When they released the iPhone, it wasn't just another phone. It was a reimagining of how we interact with technology. Or, for example, Netflix, who wouldn't have thought that a company known for sending DVDs in the mail would eventually dominate the streaming world and change how we watch TV forever. And these breakthroughs came because people challenged the status quo and thought beyond the obvious answers. So thinking outside the box is not just a skill, it's a mindset. And anyone can do it. But before we dive deeper, let's talk about why we sometimes get stuck in the box in the first place. You know probably that feeling when you have been doing something the same way for so long. It's almost automatic. That's what we call the comfort zone. And don't get me wrong, the comfort zone feels safe, cozy, and it's a beautiful place to be. It's familiar and predictable, and there's less risk of things going wrong. But here's the catch. It can also be a trap. When we stick too closely to what we know, we stop growing. And that's where the problem starts. Most of the time, we stay in that box because of fear. Fear of failure, fear of being judged, or even fear of the unknown. And society loves to push us toward the safe options too. We are encouraged to fit in, follow the rules, and not rock the boat. It's like we have been taught to color inside the lines since we were kids, right? But guess what? Some of the most exciting, life changing things happen outside those comfort zones. And there are some psychological barriers. Ever heard of a fixed mindset? It's when you believe your abilities and talents are set in stone, like I'm good at this or I'm not good at this and nothing can change. These kind of thinking keeps us stuck. Or maybe you have had a moment where you worry about what others will think if you try something new and fail. It's that little voice in your head that says, what if I mess up? And what will people say? Trust me, that voice isn't helpful. And here's the big one. Relying too much on past experiences is crucial too. We think, well, this worked before, so I will do it again. But the world is always changing, and what worked yesterday might not be enough tomorrow. And staying in that mental box might feel safe and cozy, like I said before, but it comes with the cost, stagnation. When we stop pushing boundaries, we stop finding new opportunities, whether it's your career or your relationships or your personal growth. Staying inside the box can hold you back in ways you don't even realize until it's probably too late. And next time you feel that uncomfortable feeling keeping you in place, ask yourself, what could happen if I stepped out this comfort zone just a little? So why bother stepping out of that comfort zone? What's the payoff for breaking free from the box? Well, let's start with the big one, innovation. Thinking outside the box is the birthplace of breakthroughs. I mean, just look around. Every major advancement, whether it's in technology, in business, or even personal growth, came from someone who refused to just follow the script. Think about companies like I mentioned before, like Apple. They didn't just stick to the way things had always been done. They reimagined the possibilities. And that's what changed the game. Then there's the whole problem solving piece. When you are stuck inside the box, solutions tend to look pretty limited. But when you open yourself up to new ways of thinking, suddenly problems that felt impossible start to have a lot more options. Maybe you have been facing a challenge at work or at school or in your personal life that just feels like it's going in circles. Well, breaking free from traditional thinking can help you see it from a fresh angle, an angle you probably didn't even know existed. That's where the magic happens. And unconventional thinking leads to unconventional solutions. And sometimes the best answers are not the ones we find in the textbooks or follow step by step, but the ones we create by seeing things differently. But let's not forget the personal side of this. When you start thinking outside the box, you are not just solving problems, you are growing. It's like a workout for your mind and your spirit. You are building resilience because stepping into the unknown takes courage. And with every new challenge you tackle, you become stronger and more confident. You also start to see possibilities you never would have been imagined before. Whether it's your career or your relationships, suddenly new doors start opening because you are willing to think beyond what you thought was possible. So, thinking outside the box doesn't just help you solve problems, it helps you grow. And that's where real transformation happens. Now that we have talked about why we get stuck in the box and the amazing things that can happen when we break out of it, let's dive into some practical ways you can start thinking outside the box in your own life. First, you have to challenge your assumptions. So many times we go through life with a set of beliefs or ways of doing things without ever questioning them. Start by asking yourself, why do I do things this way? And is there a better, more creative approach I haven't tried yet? It's about catching yourself when you are on autopilot and shaking things up. Another big one is exposing yourself to new perspectives. If you always stay in your bubble, it's hard to see things any other way. Try talking to people outside your usual cycle, people who think differently than you. Read books or watch documentaries about topics you have never explored before. This is like giving your brain new fuel. When you surround yourself with fresh ideas, it becomes a lot easier to make connections you wouldn't normally see. And one of the most effective ways to step outside the box is by taking calculated risks. Now, I know that sounds scary. Nobody likes the idea of falling. But here's the thing, failure is part of the creative process. Some of the greatest breakthroughs come after a long string of mistakes and trying again and again. The key is not to be afraid of those moments, but to learn from them and keep going. Start small and take a little risk, something that gets you just slightly out of your comfort zone, and build from there. And let's not forget about play. I know it sounds funny, but playfulness is a huge part of creativity. When we allow ourselves to be playful, we let go of rigid thinking and start seeing the world with fresh eyes. Whether it's doodling, brainstorming ideas, or experimenting with something new. Play can unlock ideas you didn't even know were there. So, whether it's challenging your everyday assumptions, stepping out of your comfort zone, or simply giving yourself permission to try something new every day, breaking out of the box is totally doable. It just takes a little courage, a fresh perspective, and a willingness to try something new. So let's talk about where we spend a huge chunk of our life: school and work, for sure. These are the places where creativity should thrive, right? But so often we fall into routines and thinking differently gets a little lost. So how do we bring creativity back to life in these spaces? Starting with education, this is where creativity needs to be nurtured. The problem is schools often focus on so much things like testing, grades, and sticking to a strict curriculum that students can get trapped in a box before they even realize it. But think about how powerful it would be if schools could create an environment where thinking differently was celebrated. Teachers can nurture and encourage students to ask more what if questions instead of just memorizing facts. And that's where innovation starts. Making more space for creativity, whether it's hands-on projects, creative problem-solving activities, or even just encouraging students to look at things from multiple perspectives. Creativity isn't just for art class, it's for every subject. And the earlier kids learn that, the more open their minds will be in the future. Now let's switch gears and talk about work. Companies want innovation. They want growth. But how can they expect that if employees don't feel safe to experiment or challenge the status quo? A lot of people stay in their comfort zone at work because they are afraid of messing up or looking foolish. And that is where a shift in culture is needed. What if companies encouraged their employees to take risks, try new things, and explore ideas without the fear of failure hanging over them? Imagine a workplace where failure isn't a bad word, but instead it's seen as a natural part of the process. Leaders should be fostering an environment where people feel comfortable pitching those crazy ideas, because those crazy ideas might just be the ones that lead to major breakthroughs. Whether it's hosting brainstorming sessions and giving people time to work on passion projects, or creating spaces where cross-team collaboration is encouraged, there are tons of ways to spark that innovative thinking. At the end of the day, both schools and workplaces should celebrate and encourage new ways of thinking, because it's the foundation for growth, unlocking unlimited potential, innovation, and success. All right, so we have talked about the power of thinking outside the box. And now it's time to dive into how you can actually start doing it in your everyday life. So let's get into some practical steps to shake up your mindset and get those creative juices flowing. First up, flip your perspective. This is one of my favorite tricks because it's so simple and so effective. If you are stuck on a problem or challenge, try approaching it from the complete opposite angle. Ask yourself, how would someone else solve this? Or what's the worst possible solution I could come up with? Sometimes by flipping your thinking upside down, you open up possibilities you hadn't even considered. You could also try imagining you are someone else, like an expert in a different field or even a child, and see how that changes the way you approach the issue. And it's amazing how shifting your perspective can spark new ideas. Next, let's talk about embracing failure. I know failure is usually the last thing we want to talk about, but here's the thing: failure is your friend. When it comes to creativity, we often get stuck in the box because we are afraid of messing up. But some of the best breakthroughs come from challenges, mistakes, or ideas that didn't quite work in the first place. Think of failure as part of the process. It's not the end, it's just a feedback. So take that pressure off yourself and allow room for experiences. Every failure is just a stepping stone to something more amazing. Another practical step is to collaborate creatively. If you have been working on something solo and feel stuck, teaming up with someone who thinks differently can be a real game changer. Get together with someone from a completely different field, or just someone whose perspective is different from yours, and brainstorm ideas. The beauty of collaboration is that it brings in fresh perspectives, which can lead to solutions you would have never come up with on your own. Even casual conversations with friends or coworkers can spark that one idea that pushes you forward. And don't underestimate the power of bouncing ideas around with others. These small shifts can make a huge difference in how you approach problems and open up in a world of new possibilities. Now that we have covered a lot of ideas on how to break free from conventional thinking in our day-to-day lives, it's time to get personal. Journaling is such a powerful way to reflect, to dive deeper, and to really see where you can apply these ideas in your own life. So grab a notebook and let's get into some prompts that will help you unlock new creative possibilities. First of all, write about a time when thinking outside the box helped you overcome a challenge. And ask yourself, how did it change your perspective? Maybe it was a work project, a relationship issue, or something personal. What did breaking free from the usual approach teach you? Next prompt. Identify an area of your life where you feel stuck. And now, imagine what would happen if you approached it from a completely different angle. What might shift? And don't be afraid to get a little wild with your ideas here. Next prompt. Think about a problem you are facing right now. What's one unconventional solution you could try? It doesn't have to be perfect, just something that breaks the usual pattern of thinking. And you might be surprised by what comes up. The next prompt is reflecting on the last time you failed. How could this experience actually be a stepping stone for new creative possibilities? Write about how this has shaped your path and how you can use it to fuel your next move. And the next prompt is list 3 small actions you can take this week to start thinking differently in your personal or in your professional life. Whether it's brainstorming in a new way or collaborating with someone unexpected or simply changing up your routine. Commit to giving them a try. And journaling these prompts will help you get clearer on where you can push boundaries and start creating new opportunities for growth, innovation, and for success. And as we wrap up this episode, let's take a moment to recap what we have explored together. Thinking outside the box isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a vital skill that opens the door to innovation, creative problem solving, and personal growth. And by breaking free from conventional thinking, we can discover new paths and solutions that we might never have considered otherwise. Remember, cultivating creativity is within everyone's reach. It's not about having a natural talent. It's about making a mindset shift and being open to embracing new perspectives. So, whether you are navigating a challenge at work or seeking new opportunities in your personal life or simply trying to inject some freshness into your routine, know that you have the power to think differently. Now, here's your challenge. Pick one of the strategies we discussed today and put it into action. Whether it's flipping your perspective or embracing failure or collaborating creatively, take that step and see where it leads you. And always remember, creativity is within us all. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, the world is full of possibilities waiting for you to explore. And until next time, keep thinking creatively and pushing the boundaries. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Soultime. I'm very grateful because you have given me the greatest treasure of your life, your time. If you enjoyed this episode, click the subscribe button so that you get a notification every time a new episode is out.